How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, June 7th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims for this episode of The Elite. Now that the first round of the 2021 NBA playoffs are over, I'm going to take this time to preview the second round of the NBA playoffs, the conference semifinals, as so far 16 teams came in after the play-in series. So I guess 20 teams were not eliminated at the conclusion of the regular season, and then four teams were eliminated from the play-in round to make it 16 total teams. And now the 16 has shrunk to 8 teams that are currently competing for a title. And in this episode, I'm going to give a little bit of context and just preview every single matchup as it happens. So because the Eastern Conference finished first, it's worth going there first. The first matchup to look forward to in the Eastern Conference is between the 1 seed Philadelphia 76ers and the 5th seed Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks, this is the first time they've made the playoffs since 2017. This is the first time they made the playoffs since they've drafted their elite starting point guard, Trae Young. And in their very first playoff series, they were able to beat the New York Knicks in 5 games after the Hawks won the first game, the Knicks won the second, and the Hawks were able to win the next 3 off of the back of Trae Young in his very first playoff series, averaging roughly 30 points and 10 assists for the entire series. And now that they're here, so that's how the Hawks made it here. The Philadelphia 76ers made it here after beating the 8th seed Washington Wizards in 5. The Wizards beat them, I believe, game 4, but then the Sixers were just too strong. They were too much. They really kind of dominated the Wizards just all around with their 3-point shooting and amazing defense. So of course it makes sense as to how they got here, as they were led by their elite starting center Joel Embiid and their elite point guard Ben Simmons, along with their other amazing starters. I mean, Tobias Harris even had a couple of really amazing virtuoso performances. So that's going to be the first matchup in the East. So far, game 1 has already been played. Game 1 was played last night. The 5th seed Atlanta Hawks were able to get the best of the 1 seed 76ers. So the Hawks currently hold a 1-0 series lead. The next game will be in Philadelphia, as Philadelphia holds the home court advantage. But right now, that is what that series is looking like. And looking at last night's game, it was pretty big from Trae Young. Trae Young finished with 35 and 10, just to give a glimpse of what's going on there. So right now, that's the first matchup in the Eastern Conference that's already played his first game. And then the other matchup in the Eastern Conference semis is between the 2nd seed Brooklyn Nets and the 3rd seed Milwaukee Bucks. The 3rd seed Milwaukee Bucks, the team on the road, they made it here after being the only team to sweep their opponent in the first round. They swept the defending Eastern Conference champs Miami Heat, pretty convincingly. There were some games that were close, and the first game had to be ended with a Chris Middleton game-winning shot. But the rest of the games, they seemed to get through it with relative ease, and of course being led by their elite starting power forward, reigning National League MVP, reigning National Basketball Association 2-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo helping them get there. And then on the other side of the coin, the 2nd seed Brooklyn Nets were able to make it to this round after beating the Boston Celtics in 5 games. The Celtics, I believe, took game 3 when Jason Tatum dropped 50 points. But other than that, the three-headed, or the triumvirate of their goated power small forward Kevin Durant, their elite shooting guard James Harden, their elite point guard Kyrie Irving have just been amazing and very dominant, alongside Joe Harris, the best 3-point shooter in basketball, and not to mention their elite power forward Blake Griffin, who has on and off performances. So they've had their way with the Boston Celtics in the first round, and now that they've made it to the second round, they currently lead the 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks 1-0 after beating the Bucks on Saturday 115-107 behind Kevin Durant's 29 points and 10 rebounds. So right now, the 2 seed Brooklyn Nets currently lead the series, and they actually gave the Bucks their very first loss of the playoffs in the second round. So that's how that series is looking out. Then game 2 of this series will be today at 7:30, as it takes place on TNT. So that's another one to look out for. Those are the 4 teams in the East that are competing against one another, and obviously the winner of the 76ers and the Hawks will play against the winner of the Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then looking at to how the West is shaping up, looking at the first matchup, the first seed Utah Jazz are going to face off against the 4 seed Los Angeles Clippers. After the 4 seed Los Angeles Clippers were able to defeat the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks in 7 yesterday. That was probably one of the better playoff series in recent memory. The game went to 7. It went to game 7. Through the away team won the first 6 games of the series, and meaning that the Dallas Mavericks had a 2-0 series lead at one point and still ended up losing the series. Very interesting. It was a great test of will and determination from the Los Angeles Clippers, especially their goated starting small forward Kawhi Leonard and their elite starting shooting guard Paul George. So the first matchup of this series, so they're going to face off against the first seed Utah Jazz. The Jazz made it here after beating the Memphis Grizzlies in 5 games pretty convincingly. The Grizzlies won the very first game while Donovan Mitchell, the Jazz's elite starting shooting guard, was not playing. But as soon as Mitchell came back, the Jazz gentlemen swept the Memphis Grizzlies, knocking them out in 5. So they were able to make it here originally. So this series has not technically started yet. The first game of the Jazz Clippers will be tomorrow at 10 o'clock on TNT. Of course, the Jazz will have home court advantage, and the Clippers, as of right now, are a team that's 3-0 on the road as a playoff team. Just something worth knowing. So that's going to be the first matchup in the West. And then looking at the other side of the aisle, it is the 2-3 matchup in the division between the 2nd seed Phoenix Suns and the 3rd seed Denver Nuggets. The 3rd seed Denver Nuggets were able to make it here after beating the Portland Trailblazers in 6. Damian Lillard had an amazing series for the Portland Trailblazers. Just the Nuggets were a much stronger, better all-around team. Nikola Jokic was getting it done, Michael Porter Jr., and they just had people from all over just helping them out. Facu Campazzo, he was balling out as well. But at the end of the day, that's how the Nuggets made it to the Western Conference Finals last year, and they did not disappoint this year. The Phoenix Suns made it here after shocking the world as the 2 seed and beating the 7 seed defending champs Los Angeles Lakers, along with they beat LeBron James and Anthony Davis in 6. Anthony Davis got hurt for a good chunk of that series, so of course he was missing. And then, of course, the Phoenix Suns were able to overwhelm the Lakers with depth, youth, and I think the fact that the Lakers had a much shorter offseason than the Suns, and they had the playoffs and the finals. It's not even that they had a shorter offseason. They actually made it all the way through the playoffs, which should that should say something in itself, but at the end of the day, the Suns were the team that won. They were the better team, and now they are going to host the Denver Nuggets. The Phoenix Suns have home court advantage, so of course they will get the first 2 games at home, but that'll be a much anticipated matchup as Devin Booker has been on a tear in the playoffs. So those are going to be the winner of the Suns Nuggets will face off against the winner between the Jazz and the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. So that's basically what the conference semifinal round is looking like for today. Once again, it is Monday, June 7th, 2021 out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and I want to thank everyone once again for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and I will catch you tomorrow once all of today's exhibitions are done on Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. Thanks once again for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and stay elite. I'll catch you tomorrow.